I woke up with a name I couldn't find, stitched into a face that didn't feel like skin I'd earned. A man with movie star cheekbones called me wife, like it was a password he had memorized too well. 7 days missing, he said. I only remembered the taste of iron and a road unfolding like a tongue. If love is a feeling, then why did mine recoil from him like a burned hand? Machines breathed for me before I remembered how. The room was white in the loud way, bright, sterile, the air-conditioned whisper looping above. My body felt heavy, tethered to the bed by wires and tubes. The pain was everywhere, dull but insistent, and my face throbbed with a strange, unfamiliar weight. Hey, a voice said. I turned my head and saw him. Perfectly tailored hair, sharp jaw, warm brown eyes that looked like they could convince anyone of anything. He smiled. You're awake. He reached for my hand. A gold wedding band caught the light. It's me. Ethan. Your husband. The word hung in the air. Husband. I waited for a spark of recognition, our wedding, our home, our life, but nothing came. My voice felt brittle. I don't. You had an accident, he said gently. A car crash. You've been in intensive care for 7 days. But you're safe now. Safe. The word felt foreign. My stomach tightened. There was nothing outwardly wrong with him, his tone was calm, his smile reassuring, but something beneath it rang false. He talked as though filling an empty space with words. You love jasmine tea. That British detective show. You hate mushrooms. Your sister Nicole is flying in. He glanced toward the door when he said, sister, almost too quickly. A knock interrupted us. 2 doctors entered, Dr. Patel, my attending physician, and Dr. Rios, a plastic surgeon with silver at his temples and careful, steady hands. Dr. Patel spoke first. You sustained significant facial injuries. Dr. Rios reconstructed your face. My heart stuttered. How did you know what I looked like? Your husband gave us a photograph, Dr. Rios said. Ethan's hand tightened around mine, 2 exact strokes of his thumb, a rhythm that felt rehearsed. It was from our anniversary, Ethan added smoothly. Dr. Rios showed me the photo on a tablet. A beautiful woman smiled back, sleek brown hair, flawless skin, hazel eyes, a white dress glowing in the sunset. She was perfect. But she was not me. Is that me? I whispered. Ethan's smile didn't waver. Of course. Charleston, last fall. You loved that dress. The woman in the picture looked over her shoulder at someone out of frame, warmth in her eyes, but not for me. Not for Ethan. Not for this life I was being handed like a script I hadn't agreed to read. Dr. Rios assured me it was normal to feel unfamiliar with my reflection after trauma. I nodded, but inside, a quiet alarm was sounding. When Ethan turned to take a call, I noticed my left ring finger, smooth, pale, untouched by a wedding band's mark. A small, undeniable fact in a room full of unknowns. I didn't know who I was, but I knew this: whatever love he claimed to have for me was an act, and I was trapped in the middle of a story that wasn't mine. That night, the hospital hummed like a restless sleeper, machines sighing, footsteps in the hall, the occasional soft beep from my monitor. Ethan had left to get some rest, his voice dipped in that practiced tenderness again. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling tiles, tracing the faint crack above my bed like it could lead me to an answer. The photo lingered in my mind. Not just the way the woman looked, flawless, magazine-ready, but the feeling she gave off. She wasn't looking at the camera like a partner might. She was looking past it, at someone else. Someone who made her smile that way. I tried to force memories to surface. My name. My past. Ethan's voice telling me we'd been married. The accident. But every time I reached for something, my mind handed me back static. Only one thing felt solid: my unease around him wasn't because I'd forgotten him, it was because my body, my instincts, knew he wasn't mine to trust. Morning came with the smell of disinfectant and burnt coffee drifting in from the corridor. A nurse I hadn't seen before entered, tall, short blonde hair, kind eyes that didn't dart away. Her badge read Mara. "How's our mystery patient feeling today?" she asked, checking my 4-line. Confused, I admitted. She smiled lightly. "That's normal after what you've been through. But Dr. Patel says your scans look good. You're healing fast." She didn't say you'll be home soon, and I appreciated that. Home was a word I wasn't ready to hear. Ethan arrived mid-morning with a paper cup of jasmine tea. He sat close, his knee brushing mine, and began telling me about our life together again. Where we lived. Places we traveled. Friends I supposedly loved. His words were smooth, unbroken, but I noticed there were never details that could be checked. No last names, no addresses, no little memories that felt lived in. When I asked about Nicole, my sister, his eyes flickered just like before. "She's delayed. Work stuff." Later, Dr. Patel stopped by. After Ethan left to make some calls, the doctor lingered by the bed instead of moving on. "I'd like to ask you something," he said, lowering his voice. "Do you feel safe?" The question startled me. My first instinct was to say yes, because Ethan hadn't done anything overtly wrong. But the truth sat like a stone in my throat. I don't know. Dar. Patel studied me for a moment, then nodded like I'd confirmed something he already suspected. "If you need to speak privately, tell me. We can arrange that." That night, Mara came to check my vitals and slipped a folded piece of paper under my blanket. In neat handwriting, it read, "He never visits the nurse's station. He never asks about your treatment. He only comes when you're awake." The words made my skin prickle. I didn't sleep. Not because of the pain, but because the photo, the missing indent on my finger, and now Mara's note were pieces of a puzzle I was starting to see, but not yet understand. Somewhere in this mess was the truth about who I really was. And I was starting to think Ethan didn't want me to remember it. By the third morning, I could sit up without feeling like my ribs would crack. Mara brought breakfast, oatmeal and fruit, and lingered longer than most nurses. She chatted about small things, but her eyes kept darting toward the door, like she was measuring how much time we had before Ethan appeared. When he did arrive, it was with flowers this time. White lilies. Their scent was too sweet for the antiseptic air, cloying and heavy. He set them on the bedside table, fussed with the vase like it mattered, then started in again about our apartment overlooking the river. Dr. Rios arrived shortly after with a tray of instruments and a mirror. "We'll take the dressings off today," he said. Ethan stayed, standing behind me as the surgeon carefully unwound layer after layer of gauze. My pulse quickened, not from pain, but from the dread of seeing that stranger's face in the reflection again. When the last strip fell away, I looked. The swelling had gone down, but the bones beneath were sharp and unfamiliar. The eyes were mine, I thought, but the rest? It was as if someone had painted over me with another person's features. "You'll adjust," Dr. Rios said gently. The reconstruction followed the photograph your husband provided. He said it casually, but his eyes flickered for a fraction of a second toward Ethan. I caught it. A tiny hesitation, quickly covered. I swallowed. "Doctor, before the accident, did you speak with me? Did I ever approve the surgery?" He hesitated again. "You were unconscious. We needed a reference. Without the photo, we wouldn't have had a guide. And there were no other photos?" I pressed. Ethan's hand landed lightly on my shoulder. "We didn't have much time. That one was perfect." "Perfect for who?" Dr. Rios gathered his tools, then paused. "If you need anything, call for me directly." He slipped a small card onto the tray before wheeling it away. I couldn't read it with Ethan still in the room. Later, when I was alone, I reached for it. On the back, in small, careful handwriting, was a single line. "Are you certain this is your face?" The words pulsed in my mind long after lights out. That evening, Dr. Patel stopped by again, and this time, he closed the door behind him. "We're going to monitor your recovery closely," he said, voice low. "And for now, I'd like you to keep any concerns about your identity between us." "Why?" "Because sometimes," he said, "the truth is easier to see when no one knows you're looking." The next morning, Mara came in with a different tone, hurried, urgent. "Dr. Patel wants to run a test. Something to confirm a few things." "What kind of test?" She glanced at the security camera in the corner. "The kind we don't talk about in here." Something in her expression told me, whatever Ethan was hiding, we were about to start pulling at the first thread. It happened in pieces, like someone sneaking furniture out of a house so slowly you didn't notice until the rooms were bare. That afternoon, Dr. Patel came in with his usual clipboard, making small talk about my vitals. Mara followed with a portable heart monitor, wheeling it in like it was just another piece of equipment. But instead of attaching it to my chest, she rolled it to the corner near the curtain track. "Upgrading your monitoring," she said casually, while her hands moved in a way that was too precise, too careful. When she stepped back, the device looked ordinary, small screen, steady green blip, but the angle of the lens tucked into the top wasn't for checking my heartbeat. Once Ethan arrived, I pretended nothing had changed. He breezed in with another cup of jasmine tea and a stack of magazines. "Thought you might want something to read," he said, placing them neatly on the tray table. His eyes swept the room the way a guest checks for coasters before setting down a drink. He settled into the chair beside my bed, leaned in just close enough to smell the faint sweetness of his cologne. "Nicole still hasn't booked her flight," he said, shaking his head. "Work's keeping her tied up." I nodded like it mattered, but my mind was on the camera. I wondered if it could hear the strange rhythm of his voice, how every sentence seemed rehearsed, like he'd practiced in a mirror. The rest of the day passed in slow drips. Nurses came and went. Dinner was lukewarm pasta. At 8 p.m., Ethan kissed my forehead, cool lips, no warmth, and left for the night. Minutes later, Mara appeared again. "We're live," she whispered. "Everything he says or does here will be recorded." That night, I didn't sleep much. I lay still, listening to the hospital's nighttime lull, imagining the silent watchful eye in the corner. Somewhere, a red recording light blinked in the dark. The first crack came sooner than expected. The next morning, Ethan arrived late. His shirt was untucked, his hair slightly mussed, like he'd dressed in a hurry. He didn't bring tea this time. Instead, he sat down, pulled out his phone, and started typing furiously. His thumb moved fast, his jaw tight. A few minutes later, his phone lit up with an incoming call. He answered without hesitation. "Yeah, I'm here now," he said, voice low. "No," she still doesn't remember anything. I kept my eyes half closed, feigning rest. There was a pause, then he added, "Don't worry. Once she's discharged, we'll handle the papers." Another pause. "Yes, I told you, I'll see you tonight." The softness in his voice then was different. Warmer. Real. And it wasn't for me. When he left, Mara slipped back in, eyes wide. "We'll need to review the footage," she said. "But I think you just heard the beginning of something bigger than either of us realized." I believed her. Because in that single overheard conversation, I'd learned two things: Ethan wasn't my husband. And whatever he wanted from me, it had nothing to do with love. The review happened in Dr. Patel's office the next evening. The blinds were drawn, the computer screen turned so only the three of us could see. Mara closed the door and locked it before sitting down. On the monitor, grainy footage from the hidden camera flickered to life. I saw myself lying in bed, motionless, eyes closed. Ethan sat in the chair, scrolling his phone. For a long time, nothing happened. Then, at 9:13 p.m., his phone lit up. We turned up the volume. "I'm still at the hospital," Ethan's voice murmured, lower than I'd ever heard it. "No, she hasn't remembered. I told you, it's fine." His posture shifted, shoulders relaxed, legs stretched out, as if he'd stepped into another role entirely. The voice on the other end was faint, feminine. "Yes," he said after a pause. "Tonight. Same place." Then came the smile. Not the polite, controlled curve he gave me, but something warmer, almost boyish. I didn't need to hear the rest to know, this was the real Ethan. The next clip was from the following afternoon. He sat closer to my bed than usual, leaning in, voice soft. "We'll get through this, okay?" But his eyes kept flicking toward the camera, except he didn't know about that camera. His gaze was on the obvious hospital one by the door. When he left, Mara fast-forwarded. Hours vanished in seconds. Then, at 11:47 p.m., the feed caught him slipping back into the room. He thought I was asleep. He stood over me for nearly a minute, just watching, before pulling his phone from his pocket and taking several photos of my face. No flash. All quick, precise. Then he left without touching me. "That's not husband behavior," Mara muttered. Dr. Patel leaned back in his chair, frowning. "I've seen families act strangely after trauma, but this is deliberate." "What do you think he wants?" I asked. He exchanged a look with Mara. "That's what we intend to find out. But we're not going to ask him. We're going to follow him." The plan formed quickly. I would act normal. Play the part he'd written for me. Meanwhile, a security contact of Dr. Patel's would track his movements after leaving the hospital. 3 nights later, we had our answer. Ethan didn't go home after visiting me. He drove to a hotel on the other side of the city. He entered room 304 at 9:02 p.m. At 9:04, a woman joined him. The description made my skin crawl: tall, dark hair, red dress. They stayed there for 2 hours before leaving separately. Dr. Patel showed me the still image pulled from the hotel's hallway camera. The woman's face was blurred, but there was something in the angle of her chin, the confident set of her shoulders, that sent a strange, involuntary shiver down my spine. Because even though I couldn't place her name, I had the sinking feeling I'd seen her before. I couldn't shake the image of the woman in red. It played over in my mind all night, the tilt of her chin, the way her hair fell in a sleek line over one shoulder. It was a feeling, not a memory, but it gnawed at me. By morning, I'd convinced myself it was nothing. Just my brain clinging to scraps in the absence of real memories. But when Mara brought my breakfast, she set the tray down and quietly slid me a folded sheet of paper. It was a printed still from the hotel footage. The blur over the woman's face was gone. The instant I saw her eyes, my pulse spiked. I didn't remember her, but I knew her. Deep in that animal part of me that had been growling about Ethan since the moment I woke up. She wasn't family. She wasn't a friend. She was danger. "Who is she?" I asked. "That," Mara said, "is Lila Harrow." The name meant nothing at first, but Dr. Patel had more. He came in an hour later, carrying a manila folder that looked like it had been pulled from somewhere it wasn't supposed to be. Inside were news clippings, photocopied legal documents, and a grainy driver's license photo of Lila, same sharp jaw, same cool stare. "She's known for being involved with wealthy men," he said. "Several lawsuits. Nothing that stuck, but a lot of smoke." "What does she have to do with me?" He hesitated before answering. "You were found without ID after the accident. Ethan identified you at the hospital. But there's no record of you two being married, anywhere. No license, no shared property. Nothing." The words landed like cold water. "So I could be anyone?" "Exactly," he said. "And if you are someone else, someone with assets, family connections, an inheritance, this could be about more than deception." The word inheritance rattled in my head. It didn't feel familiar, but it felt heavy, like a door I wasn't ready to open. That afternoon, while Ethan was visiting, I tested something. I asked about our wedding day. He smiled on cue. Small ceremony. Just close friends and family. What was the name of the place? I asked lightly. He blinked. Just once. You know, that little vineyard outside the city. What city? The hesitation was so brief anyone else might have missed it. Charleston. Later, Mara whispered, he's slipping. Keep pressing, but casually. If we're right, they can't risk you remembering too much before they act. That night, Dr. Patel came in with news from his security contact. Lila Harrow wasn't just Ethan's mistress, she'd been seen meeting with him weeks before my accident. And 2 days before the crash, she'd been at a law office downtown. The kind that specialized in estate transfers. The puzzle was starting to take shape, and I didn't like the picture it was making. I couldn't stop staring at the photograph Dr. Rios had used for my reconstruction. The woman in it looked nothing like the person I felt inside, if that person even still existed. The more I studied her, the more I saw small tells, the way she held her shoulders back, the faint curve of a smirk she wasn't quite hiding. Confidence. Wealth. She belonged to a different world than the sterile hospital room I now occupied. That evening, Dr. Patel came in after Ethan had left. He closed the blinds, lowered his voice. I've been digging, he said. The woman in the photo Ethan provided? Her name was Margaret Vale. Heiress to the Vale shipping fortune. She died 3 months ago. The words hit me like a physical blow. Died? How? Officially? Accidental drowning while on vacation in Greece. Body was recovered and cremated abroad. I gripped the blanket so tightly my fingers ached. Then why would he give you her photo for my surgery? Because if you look like Margaret Vale, he said slowly, and you can be passed off as her, someone could claim her identity. Or her assets. I thought of the smooth skin where a wedding ring should have been. The absence of personal belongings when I woke. The way Ethan's tenderness never reached his eyes. Who am I, then? I asked. Dr. Patel hesitated. We don't know yet. There were no records under the name Ethan gave. It's possible you had no identification on you when the ambulance brought you in because it was never meant to be found. A cold, dizzy feeling swept over me. I might not just be a victim of an accident, I could be a pawn in something much larger, wearing a face that belonged to a dead woman. Later, Mara slipped in with a small envelope. Inside was a USB drive. Footage from the hotel, she said. Our contact pulled the lobby cameras. You need to see this. When we loaded it on Dr. Patel's laptop, the pieces slid closer together. Ethan and Lila entering the lobby together, their heads bent close. Lila was holding a manila folder, the same kind I'd seen in Patel's office. But it was the still frame that froze my breath. Lila was smiling at Ethan, and in the reflection of the glass lobby doors, I saw something else. A photograph of me, or rather, of Margaret Vale, was tucked into the folder. They weren't just involved in my accident. They were building me into someone else. Dr. Patel didn't waste time with pleasantries that night. He came in alone, his face set in a way that made my stomach knot. We don't have much time, he said. If Ethan and Lila are building you into Margaret Vale, they won't risk you being in a controlled environment like this for long. Hospitals have too many eyes, too much documentation. I swallowed hard. You think they'll try to move me? He nodded. Soon. Probably under the pretense of home care or a private facility. Somewhere they can isolate you completely. The thought made my skin crawl. I was already trapped in this bed, but at least here I had Mara, the cameras, Patel. Outside, I'd be on their turf. What do we do? I asked. For now, he said, we gather enough evidence to stop them before they act. The footage from the hotel is a start, but we need something irrefutable, proof they caused your accident, or that they're conspiring to commit fraud. My mind kept circling the same impossible truth. If I wasn't Margaret Vale, and I wasn't Ethan's wife, then who was I? And what did I have that made all of this worth it? The next morning, Ethan arrived with a brightness in his voice that didn't match the shadows under his eyes. "Good news," he said, pulling a chair closer. "The doctors think you're well enough to be discharged in a few days. I've already arranged everything: private nurse, comfortable place to recover." I forced a smile. "That's fast." He reached for my hand, squeezing it twice, the same rehearsed gesture. "You'll heal better away from all this noise." Mara caught my eye later in the day, her expression tight. "Patel's right. He's accelerating things." That night, the hidden camera caught something chilling. Ethan came in after visiting hours, thinking I was asleep again. He leaned close to my ear and whispered, "Almost done, baby. Just a few more days, and we can put all of this behind us." Then he kissed my temple, not the cool, impersonal touch I was used to, but a deliberate press, like sealing a deal. He left without another word. When Patel saw the footage, he didn't hesitate. "We move first. Tomorrow, we find out what's really in that folder Lila was carrying." The clock wasn't just ticking anymore, it was pounding in my ears. If they got me out of here before I remembered who I was, I might never get the chance to. The plan was reckless. Patel admitted as much, but he didn't offer an alternative. "If we wait," he said, "they'll make their move, and you'll vanish. We have one shot." That evening, Mara appeared with a duffel bag instead of her usual cart. Inside was a hospital staff jacket for me and a knit cap to hide my still healing face. "You can walk," she said firmly. "Slowly, but you can." The idea wasn't to leave the hospital entirely, just slip into the admin wing where Patel's contact had pulled security records. Lila's visit to the law office had left a paper trail, and the folder she carried might have passed through here if she'd been transferring documents. We moved in silence, the hum of vending machines and the faint buzz of fluorescent lights our only cover. Every step jarred my ribs, but adrenaline dulled the worst of it. In a small records room, Patel was already waiting. He'd charmed the night clerk into a smoke break and was now rifling through a drawer labeled Legal Correspondence. And then, there it was. A manila folder stamped with the name Vale Shipping Holdings. Inside, neatly clipped together, were copies of a death certificate from Margaret Vale, and a set of forged identification papers with my reconstructed face staring back at me. The name on the ID was Margaret Vale Harrow. Harrow. Lila's last name. Patel flipped through the rest, power of attorney documents naming Ethan Harrow as the legal executor of Margaret's estate, signed and notarized in what looked like my hand. The dates were recent. Too recent. "They're building a legal identity for you as Margaret Vale," Patel said grimly. "Once they have you alone, they'll finalize these transfers. The Harrows will control everything." My throat felt tight. "And then, what happens to me?" He didn't answer. Footsteps echoed down the hallway. Mara shoved the folder into her jacket and pushed me gently toward the door. "Go. Now." We slipped back to my room just seconds before Ethan walked in, smiling like he hadn't a care in the world. "I have great news," he said brightly. "Your discharge papers will be ready tomorrow morning." I forced myself to meet his gaze, to keep my voice steady. "Tomorrow?" "Fresh start," he said, brushing a strand of hair from my face. "You'll love it." The folder in Mara's jacket felt like a live wire between us. Tomorrow, everything would come to a head, one way or another. Morning came too bright, too fast. Mara and Patel were both in my room before sunrise, speaking in low, urgent voices. "We have enough," Patel said. "The forged IDs, the power of attorney documents, and the footage of Ethan with Lila. But the real leverage, the thing that will keep him from walking away, is proving he caused the accident." Mara set a small audio recorder on my tray table. "This will be in your pocket. Let him talk. He thinks he's won. People gloat when they think the game's over." At 9 a.m. Ethan arrived with a wheelchair and a smile sharp enough to cut glass. "Ready, sweetheart? Big day." I nodded, letting him wheel me toward the elevator. My heart hammered so loudly I worried the recorder would pick it up. Once the doors closed, he leaned in, voice low. "You've been amazing. I knew you'd pull through, didn't I say you would?" "Why me?" I whispered. He chuckled softly, as if humoring a child. "Because you were perfect. Right place, right time. No family to come looking, no one to miss you. And with a little help from that photo, you became Margaret." The elevator hummed downward. I forced my voice to stay even. "And the accident?" A pause. Then, a necessary reset. "I didn't plan for you to get hurt that badly, but things happen." The doors opened to the lobby. Mara was waiting by the front desk, phone in hand. Ethan didn't notice her. He was too busy steering me toward the exit, toward whatever place they prepared to erase me completely. But before we reached the doors, a uniformed officer stepped into our path. "Ethan Harrow?" Ethan froze. Two more officers appeared from behind, and Patel emerged from the hallway holding the manila folder. "Everything's here," he told them. "Forgery, fraud, and attempted murder." Ethan's eyes snapped to mine, the mask finally slipping. "You think this is over?" he hissed. I met his glare with a steadiness I didn't know I had. "For you, it is." They took him away in handcuffs. Through the glass doors, I saw a second set of officers escorting Lila from a black sedan parked at the curb. Her red dress blazed in the morning light, but her face was pale. When the lobby emptied, Patel turned to me. "We still don't know your real name. But you're safe now. We can start from there." Safe. The word felt different this time, like an unlocked door instead of a false promise. I didn't know where I came from, but I knew one thing. Whoever I had been before the accident, I was no longer just a victim. I was someone who had been stolen, rewritten, and still managed to survive the story they tried to trap me in. And now, I would write my own.